Welcome to the Game Dev London podcast. I'm your host, Ros Tuplin, and today my guest is Ranjani Natarajan. Hi there, Ranjani.
Hi, Ros.
Hi. So, in 2016, Ranjani left the world of finance for video games. She was a producer at Six to Start, makers of the smash hit exercise-led narrative adventure game Zombies Run, where players achieve their real-world exercise goals by following missions on their devices. She's now working with Robot Teddy, specialising in production and operations. And Ranjani is also a limit break mentor. And in September, she joined the board of UKIE, the UK Games trade body. So you started your career in a very different space. How did you end up moving from the world of finance to the games industry?
Well, that's a bit of a long story and an international trip. So I was actually born in India and I ended up studying accounting and finance. And I worked in the world of credit rating just as the credit crash happened in 2008, which was excellent timing. And I eventually moved into stock trading on the NYSE and NASDAQ and spent some time doing that, fell in love, got married, moved to the UK because that's where my new husband worked, and tried to do a degree in management accounting here as well. Once I finished studying, I was sort of looking at what to be doing next. And, you know, it's that moment where you've had a huge life change and you think, is this really what I want to be doing the rest of my life or not? So we spent some time thinking about it. I tried dabbling in making my own little game. So it was this 3D version of 2048, which is this little logic game that you combine even numbers in, and they make, you know, larger squares of 2 basically. And we made like a lovely little 3D version. And I realized that was, it wasn't really what I'd done before, but I enjoyed doing it in a strange way. So I started looking for roles that might help me pursue those kinds of interests further. And during this phase, I got into working out, I got into running, and I was using this app called Zombies Run. I followed them on Twitter, and I realized that they'd advertised a position for an internship in February 2016. So that was when they were recording an audiobook, and they were also recording, I think, season 5 of Zombies Run, and they were looking for a production assistant. And I applied and I got in. It's not the most exciting story. It's not the most like rags to riches type story, but an internship is, I think, a fairly reliable way of switching careers after you've done a bunch of qualifications and you really want to try something new. So that's how I got into Six to Start, which was I think it was a really great turn of events in my life because Six to Start is a company that's small enough where you can try a lot of different things. And in startups and small indie companies, you know what it's like. You join to do one thing, you're doing 15 things by the end of the year. And that's basically how my career in games started, yeah.
And yeah, that's interesting. You were sort of probably having to take on a lot of new skills. Did you find that it was a good place to kind of learn things? Who did you kind of learn from? Where did you kind of get the cues for how to be a good producer?
That's a really good question. So I think this was my first proper job in the UK. So there's obviously a certain level of, I think, imposter syndrome that every immigrant feels when it's their first time in a job in a Western country. So there were, in addition to that, it had been my first time working in a formal setting for some time, plus it was a new industry. So I was incredibly lucky that the audio director at Six to Start was Matt Bateska, who's been there for, well, who at the time had been there for about 6 to 7 years, I think. And he was incredibly experienced, and this was an internship that he planned to support him in organizing recording for Zombies Run, which means that you get draft scripts from the writers, you have to do a whole bunch of calculations to figure out, you know, how many scenes is each person doing, and how many lines do they have, how much time should we be booking in those actors for, like a lot of extremely low-level detail that you had to sort of manually work through to figure out how to structure the entire recording project. And you have to match that up with the sound director's availability, the actor's availabilities, and booking in the recording booth, which at the time was inside the company. We had our own there, which was a lot easier than what it is now, which is an external recording booth that you have to book. So it was, I think it was like a self-contained project. It was like the best thing that any producer could cut their teeth on. And working with Matt on that, who was incredibly helpful in being supportive, being guiding, being, you know, giving me very, very specific tasks to complete that sort of built on the skills that I was developing. I think it was a confluence of those things that gave me enough confidence and also helped me, you know, do a good job of it. I finished the internship in March and I got a job offer in April. I started in May. So I assume I did something right. The CEO of Six to Start is Adrian Hahn, who has a background in creating ARGs like Perplexity. And he sort of had this really nice approach to onboarding somebody, which is similar to how companies like Automatic do it, the creators of WordPress, where if you join the company, you end up having to do customer support for a while, just so that you can see what that experience is like, understand how users interact with the product, the challenges that they face, and also I think helps you develop a healthy sense of respect for what those roles involve, because I think in a lot of tech industries, you can sort of think of the customer support person as the lowest denominator, whereas they are in fact the public-facing version of your company. If they are bad, your company is going to get poor reviews, regardless of how good your product is. And I think that was a really, really grounding experience for me. I moved from that naturally into QA because a lot of the time you need to reproduce issues that your users have reported, and so it's just a natural segue, developing skills where you learn how to be systematic about testing for issues, or you start familiarizing yourself with the product enough, and therefore you have like an instinctive understanding of what could be causing certain issues, which is very, very helpful to the company. In parallel to that, I suppose, it was again a confluence of the right timings for certain things happening in the company, because right as I joined, they'd been working on a prototype for a board game adaptation of Zombies Run, and the prototype was at the point where they decided, all right, this is ready to go to Kickstarter. So I joined, started support QA, and sort of got slowly moved into production on the board game Kickstarter and what eventually became the actual board game production process, because I guess I was an available resource at the time, and I'd shown that I had fairly reliable organizational ability from my time helping with recording. And I was doing additional seasons of Zombies Run, managing those in along with the board game and the support and things like that. So it was, I think, the right time for me to join the company. They had just decided to expand into this new thing. It was quite an exciting time to be there. Adrian and Matt had the time to pay attention to me. Lou, who worked in customer support at the time, was incredibly supportive and helped me. Well, she basically addressed all of the 101 questions I had. It was just a really supportive team. I mean, it sounds so wholesome and fluffy, and it's kind of what it was, to be honest. Like, it's a company. Obviously, these are business relationships, and it's not always going to be positive and hunky-dory, but I think it was a very constructive environment, which I was quite lucky to find at the start of my games career. And I think a lot of people struggle when they don't land the right thing there. And I think that's probably what helped me build on my skills and give me enough confidence to sort of explore the wider industry as well.
That's all, folks. Thanks again for listening. For more information on Game Dev London, you can visit gamedev.london. Follow us on Twitter at GameDev London and download the other episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Bye.